Y'all, I'm not gonna lie. It felt like anything men did, we were like, what? Why are you breathing?
Dynamite's gonna make everything all right.
Euphoria, shut the f up. I know that was you. I ain't even gotta look.
God, we were ruthless. Ruthless. We were ruthless. So, occasionally, I do find myself on the dating apps. It honestly depends on what mood I'm in. But on this particular day, I was in a mood to chat, but not with the Mensiz. So I had switched my settings. And the first girl that I match with, in her profile, there's a photo. And it just says, lonely single men are on the rise due to higher dating standards. Oh my God. It was like a mating call or something. But anyway, saw this and immediately looked it up because I was like, is this real? Maybe this isn't real. Come to find out, or as we say in Wolof, fake on their wall. These articles were published literally like a day or two before. So this is, ooh, my tea's ready. Hold on one second. So turns out this is actually true, although as always, there's more to the story. But this is all research from the Pew Research Center, I think a place that most people find trustworthy. And when I was looking at the research article, I didn't expect it to be as long as it was because it was honestly very broad strokes, but it was mostly talking about how, yeah, just statistically, you're just really worse off if you're unpartnered, especially if you are an unpartnered male. I'll link it. But reading some of these articles and reading Pew's research and stuff, of course, got me thinking how interesting it is that now people are even doing research on this phenomenon of not just unpartnered people, but unpartnered straight men and why they are unpartnered and the effects it'll have on their health, mental, physical well-being, all of that. And how, and speaking in binaries, how for women, it's actually like healthier apparently, or, you know, not to have a husband or children weighing them down. I'm kidding. Kind of. All jokes aside, I have linked articles that explain it's not quite so general when we know women is not a monolith, aren't a monolith. Y'all know. So I wanted to chat with y'all today because this is the stuff I love to talk about. Relationships and intimacy and connection and psychological patriarchy, because we are going to do it. So those of you that finally read How Can I Get Through to You, even though I've been telling you all to be reading this for like 2 years now, for those of you that have read it, you'll have some of the language already. For those of you that haven't, don't worry, we'll break it down. But yeah, this just got me thinking about the bars in hell, the era that we were going through and maybe still are going through, why so many of us have been like, all right, not just high dating standards, but why it's just become so evident. Is what women want, what the ladies and the babies want, is it really that complicated? What do they really want? What do we really want? And then I'm gonna talk about toxic masculinity and psychological patriarchy. It'll kind of be a brief gist of this video that I did. So if you want to see even more detailed, dive deeper into that topic, check that video out. I was really proud of that video. And then yeah, the last part, we're gonna talk about how feminism can possibly bridge the gap, or whatever arguments I'm making that I think fall into feminism. With all that being said, bonjour, nakam hi, welcome back to season 1, episode 7, aka the season finale of You Can Always Change Your Mind, a show where if I do my job right, you'll feel inclined to do what the title says or not, because you know what? Me, cool, fun, young, millennial auntie, okay? I'ma let you hang out with me. I've got lovers. I just be doing my own thing, you know? Your parents say I don't want to grow up. I say, yeah. I'm kidding. That meaning, everyone changes in their own time. Do your thing. I'm not the boss of you. So, if all of that sounds good and interesting, everything that I said at the beginning of this video, stick around. We're going to give a shout out to today's sponsor, and then we're going to get into it. Also, check out my socials. They're all here. I do a bad job of promoting them, but here they are. Thank you to Care Of for sponsoring today's video. So I'm sure most of you have heard about Care Of, but for those of you that haven't, they provide vitamins and supplements in a very, easy to use kind of package so that you can actually have a routine, because my brain is all over the place. And the package they sent me, I was just kind of expecting a bunch of bottles of whatever, but they're in these cute little packages that make it a lot easier, and they're compostable. Make it a lot easier to remember to take them as long as you put it somewhere where you can see, and also make it easy to take them on the go. And they have these cute little pocket protectors. I got one for immunity, but they have another one for gut health and another one for electrolytes, and they also provide protein powders and of course vitamins. To figure out which vitamins you actually think you need to take or what you kind of feel like you're missing in your diet, for me, because I realized that I actually don't eat as much fish as I thought I did, I wanted to make sure that I got some fish oil. I also took one of their focus blends. And this camera needs to what? Focus. Just because being in the middle of the season, I was just kind of wanting a little bit of extra help, if that makes sense. But I was able to figure all this out because they actually have a quiz that you can take, so you can let them know what type of vitamins you think you need or what, again, gaps you're missing in your diet. Then they send you this cute, easy to use pack. You just stick it on the kitchen counter or wherever is visible for you. If you have to like leave and be on the go a lot, just put it somewhere where you know you'll see it. And yeah, it actually helped me build this habit. And I'm gonna be ordering more Cara products with my discount code. And you can too, Khadija50. So click the link in my description, enter promo code Khadija50 to let them know I sent you. Thanks again to Cara for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back into it. I don't know why I did this, but thanks, y'all. Please compost me. All right. To know love, men must be willing to let go of their need to dominate. Bell Hooks, The Will to Change. So if you even know, like, I don't know, maybe a bit about feminism, you've probably heard the saying, a woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle, or some sort of variation of that phrase. So a lot of people attribute it to Gloria Steinem, but she actually attributes it to Irina Dunn, who says she wrote it on a bathroom wall in the 1970s, and I guess it just caught on. This is all according to, quote, investigator, because I actually wanted to look up where it was from. Either way, the saying is basically a woman without a man is a fish without a bicycle, meaning fish don't need bicycles, just like women don't need men. I've always thought this phrase was really interesting. The first time I heard it, I was like,
oh my God, revolutionary.
Yes.
A woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle? Duh. We've all been 22. All jokes aside, I keep finding that when I look back at the 2010s, I'm seeing a lot of chicken heads coming home to roost. But chickens coming home to roost. It's interesting to see that in that girl boss era, so many women were like not only discovering this capitalized brand of feminism.
How good are we as managers of our companies and our organizations at seeing that the men are reaching for opportunities more than women? We've got to get women to sit at the table.
I include myself in that. That was the kind I was learning at the time. And being encouraged to lean in and stuff. It just seemed like, yes, women really can, quote, have it all. A lot of women started realizing, I think, in this time period especially, and not that this is the first time it's ever happened, but in the next wave, this was a time when we started realizing, oh, what do I really need a guy for besides if I like to have sex? Or something along those lines. And it's not to say that the dudes didn't deserve the kind of energy we were bringing, because I'm gonna get to it. Because I've been real nice to y'all. I've seen the numbers increase. I've been nice to y'all, okay? As I mentioned from the Pew Research, they were pointing out how men that are unpartnered, there's just diminishing of your quality of life, I guess, overall. And for women, it seems to be the opposite. In contrast, women benefit far more from being alone. According to Professor Paul Dolan, a happiness expert and professor of behavioral science at the London School of Economics, the quote, healthiest and happiest population subgroup are women who never married or had children. What also comes into this girl bossing and just being in charge of our own destinies and all the independence. I mean, let's also think about it. A lot of us have had this independence for a while, not because like it was like yeah, you're a woman, but it was like you need to just figure it out because we have to coddle the boys and then throw them to the side once they get old enough, and you got to take care of everything and take care of them once we ruin them. So sort it out, scoot scoot. And you have a job. Some of us were already working with that independence, so I think that's also but anyway, lots more of us were finding that independence and this sort of sexual liberation. There are all these dating apps coming out as well. And with dating apps, it's just numbers and screens, just tons and tons and tons of people. It's kind of like a little cyber dating buffet. You just click through left, right. People almost stop being people and are just the pictures and the brief bit that you might gather from them. Because of all of these options, and because women started realizing, I don't need this. I don't need any of this. And some of us started even realizing, I don't even need to be a woman. What? Sorry. Our, quote, standards increased. And I wouldn't necessarily even say that they increased. I would just say that more of us felt comfortable to voice them, not only to ourselves and to our friends, but online and to each other. Like, the bar is in hell. You say that to another girl and they just know. Or you say that, I shouldn't say another girl, but you know what I mean. Like, you say that and they know. They just know. To the point where you hear variations. Or if y'all remember, the men are trash. God, we were ruthless. We were ruthless. Oh, God. I'm laughing because it was kind of fun, but it was also, And the reason that I say it was a little, is because of the next part. Not even trying, he had become the kind of man who could walk into a house and make the women cry. Because with him, in his presence, they could. Toni Morrison, beloved. So in my For the Boys video, I talked about how I was talking to this dude and he was out here trying to tell me all these stats about how terrible men's lives are. And I was scared he was a men's rights activist. And I was just like, oh my God, what is happening? And then I tried to look up information at first, not because I thought he was right, but because I wanted to prove him wrong. So I went to the internet and started Googling stats about male violence and comparing them to those of especially Black women. And to my dismay, some of the information he said was right. Long story short, I did the research and I was like, oh my God, are men okay? And one of the books that came up in the research that was recommended was this one, The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love. And so I started reading it, and the first thing that stuck out to me, the first thing that Bell Hooks had the nerve to say was that women needed to speak our lack and our loss when it comes to how we feel about the men around us. To speak our hunger for male love would demand that we name the intensity of our lack and our loss. Speaking from my own experience, as to not try to put my experience on other people's, when I read that, I was uncomfortable. And I had to put the book down for a few weeks because I didn't like that. I was activated. But thankfully I had, listened to Brene Brown, and I was like, when you get hooked, that's what she calls it, when you get emotionally hooked, investigate, try and see what's up. So I investigated and found out that I was so sad. I was like, man, do I know my dad? Do I know my brothers? Am I my bro? I'm sorry. But I was genuinely pretty wow, that's it. That's how I felt my whole life. I'm someone who in general loves intimacy and connection and I always want that no matter who I'm friends with, but it's always been difficult to have that with guys in my life. And so it's always been very, very, very frustrating. And it's hurt a lot. A lot of times it's hurt. So having to speak that lack of not being able to have that kind of connection that I've wanted with the men in my life, and that loss of not having felt that for so long, it hit. We need to be able to be honest with ourselves about how our feelings are hurt, that a lot of the dudes we know, it's not just men you date, dads, brothers, uncles, cousins, best friends, gay or straight, queer, whatever. If you're socialized as a boy, that socialization ends up having a lot more to do with how in control can you be? How dominant can you be? How much of a quote man can you be? Then how are you as a person? How do you feel? Who are you? Who are you discovering yourself to be? How do you choose to express yourself? Let's talk. You know, it's not that. It's not that for the boys. While I completely understand that there needed to be a time for anger, there needed to be a men are trash time, there needed to be all of us online just dragging y'all for filth. There needed to be a time because I don't know. To me, it almost felt kind of cathartic, and it was also finding camaraderie, all of that. But there also then needed to be a time of looking at that and going, okay, we've said it, maybe took it a little too far, and we have this rise that we see of this manosphere incels, all this sort of stuff, retaliating against this independence, you know, because you see the pendulums. That's an extreme reaction. But what can we learn from that? And what I think we can learn from that is that it's a lot deeper than just thinking men are trash, in my opinion. Speaking a frustration into the world about how difficult it is to not only connect with men, understand men, vibe with men, but even tolerate them at times. Like, that's wild to think about. There's a portion of the population that people are like, oh, men, y'all. A lot of us have had to settle for the bare minimum when it comes to the men in our lives, have had to make excuses for them, have had to do all manner of emotional labor. And because we care more about masculinity versus femininity, and if femininity is the mouth, masculinity is the hand, we care more about what's visible and what's seen and what can emotional labor, people are like, oh, that's not a real thing. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay? Yes. The one time you'll see me get angry is when I'm talking about feelings. You have us doing all manner of emotional labor. Once all of us started realizing we could do, bad all by ourselves, and really were committed to that and saw the fruits of our labor and all of that stuff, no matter how capitalist pink washed it was, in my opinion, brought about this even bigger chasm, because not only were men then already kind of in that camp of not really being emotionally intelligent or being required to be. Sex economics, the man works and women hold power as sex and give it to men depending on how much money that weird messed up mentality of all men have to offer is what's on the outside, the physical. It needs to be protection and financial. Once we all started getting more and more rights, what did you think was going to happen? And I mean, you're seeing some rights rolled back now. Wonder who people have to start depending on once more and more of these rights are rolled back. The people that are in power, and who are going to be a lot of those folks. But I feel like that chasm just got even bigger, because it's like, we don't need you for any of this extra stuff. And now we don't even need you for this emotional labor, because y'all are like, different types of friendships and intimate types of friendships are being more acceptable, more widespread. More folks are willing to even, especially women, are willing to even just have kids and raise them in a communal sort of sense with their friends. Like, all of these norms, this nuclear family, all this sort of vibe is changing. And for, let's say, a guy that's been taught their whole life, the only thing you have to offer is being powerful, being in control, money, dominance. Those people are just left out in the cold. Like, I think most dudes in the 2010s looked up one day and were just bald-headed and confused. Like, genuinely like, wait a minute. And they thought it was fun for a while. Sex positive feminism. And I'm gonna put that in quotes because I know a lot of people in the last video had commented, or previous videos commented, that like, it's not the real sex positive feminism, but it's the mainstream one. A lot of them were enjoying it for a time, get to have sex. The girls are like, we don't need you for anything. And now lonely single men are on the rise. You see how we gotta look back to then look forward? A lot of this could be helped if we allowed men, the Mensiz is what I'll say, the space to become more emotionally intelligent, I think. But the way psychological patriarchy is set up, the paradox for boys is that in order to be worthy of connection, they must prove themselves invulnerable, button-down warriors in the world's emotional marketplace. In the world of boys and men, you're either a winner or a loser, one up or one down, in control or controlled, man enough or a girl. Where in this setup is the capacity for love? Terrance Real, how can I get through to you? So I'm going to probably be inserting a lot of clips from my previous video just so I don't have to keep repeating myself. But we've talked about toxic masculinity, and a fun fact that I found out when I was researching back then and now is that toxic masculinity was created by the mythopoetic men's movement of the 90s. Now we hear this term all the time, but what exactly does it mean? I found a lot of definitions, but the one or ones that I seem to have settled upon is that it's actually just a set of behaviors or beliefs that include, but are not limited to, suppressing one's emotions or masking distress, maintaining an appearance of hardness, and violence as an indicator of power. Now, funny enough, this term was actually coined by the mythopoetic men's movement of the 80s and 90s as a reaction to second wave feminism. Men were fighting back against this belief that society was trying to feminize young boys, but also that society was trying to hypermasculate them. So in the 80s and 90s, you had men paying like $75 or more to go on these retreats to connect back to their manhood with other men. Think an all-boys retreat focused on spiritual connections with natural manhood, drum circles, mythological storytelling, and Jung. Lots of Jung. And we talked about it's a certain kind of men that can afford going away for a weekend to just do that, these men's retreats. But anyway, they had talked about toxic masculinity as traits toxic to masculinity and made it a point to acknowledge that guys do need to be able to express their feelings. It is toxic not to be able to. They just, I feel, kind of had this, there's no way that men can be men around women or so. They were just very committed to man and that identity. So I think there were still limits to what it could do, but I do still think that for what they were trying to do, man, hey, I can kind of get it. Either way, the 2010s as well, you saw a lot of people talking even more about toxic masculinity, mansplaining, literally, y'all, I'm not gonna lie. It felt like anything men did, we were like, what? Why are you breathing?
Dynamite's gonna make everything all right.
Euphoria, shut the up. I know that was you. I ain't even got to look. I should send your ass back to Crenshaw P with his high coat hangers. Would you like that?
Literally anything men did, we were so agitated. And I'm not saying it wasn't deserved isn't the best word. I'm not saying that it hadn't been earned over time. The reaction, the response, the reaction. A lot of us were also talking about the patriarchy. Man, F the patriarchy. The way the patriarchy set up, freaking patriarchy. Yes, but I think, and if we're going by Terrance Real's definition, we were talking a lot about political patriarchy. Patriarchy can be divided into two categories: political patriarchy and psychological patriarchy. Political patriarchy fits the above definition the best. It's the outward sexism that has been the focus of a lot of feminist writing. In white America, white women on average make 82 cents to every white man's dollar, with that wage gap increasing depending on your race/ethnicity. Canada, you ain't exempt from this either. Political patriarchy it's men leading the helm in the multi-billion-dollar beauty industry directed at women. It's Kamala Harris being the first woman to become vice president 100 years after women were given the right to vote. And it's well over 200 years that America has been a democracy. It's bullshit. Again, fair play, but now it's time, I believe, to talk about psychological patriarchy. Me and my hidden agenda. I've been trying to get people to talk about this for a couple years now. Woof! Trying to spread the gospel of Terrance Real. Please don't be problematic. Please. As Real describes it, psychological patriarchy is a dynamic of qualities being masculine or feminine, where half our human traits are exalted while the other half are devalued. Guess which traits are devalued? Guess. Just guess. Just take a little guess. Any traits seen as feminine or feminine leaning are immediately mocked out of young boys and men by all of us. Real talks about how we teach young boys and girls in complementary ways to bury themselves. In young girls, we teach complacency and deference. In young boys, we teach...
What's a
So in Real's book, in Hooks's book, those are the two I like to pair together. I've said this before. And if you just look around you, I think, you notice this weird difference between one, how we separate kids and then teach boys how to act a certain way versus girls. A lot of times it doesn't set any of us up to, if you're expecting that category, boys and girls, to eventually grow up and come together and marry. We don't set it up for those individuals to have a healthy relationship within that. And listen, I know patriarchy and capitalism do not care about a healthy relationship. I know. I'm just saying, though, a lot of us might forget that those are two very big forces in our lives and still operate in the same manner of, okay, well, I still do want a husband and kids and stuff. And for those people, it's like, well, how is that going to happen if the person that you want to be with is taught, sold, and beaten into submission that if they have feelings, if they try to share their emotions, if they try to express themselves in any way that is outside of this box of masculinity, the things that we've decided are masculine, then prepare to catch these hands. And not just from men, not just women, all of us. A lot of times, think about a time when you were guilty of reifying some sort of weird masculine trait in a dude. Think about it. Think about it. And I know what you might be thinking. Well, if we don't have the power, and men have always had the power, then men are the ones who made this stuff. So why do we need to sympathize with them? Remember how people aren't a monolith? Maybe there are some men, in fact, there are some men that feel that power, dominance, and control is attractive. It is alluring. It is seductive, and it is something that they want. If you're that kind of person, and you find yourself in a position of power, you are going to try to reiterate that your traits, the personality traits you have, the qualities you have, don't make you a bad person. They make you good. They, in fact, are how it should be. And more men should be like you. And if they're not men. They're women. The people we've decided to demonize their traits. God, y'all started adding gendered traits, and it's all been downhill from here. When you are told to suppress so many parts of yourself and told in violent ways, physically, emotionally, all of that, and then you see it reified in the world around you, and then after you're expected, you get into a relationship, let's say, and you're expected to know how to be, let's say, emotionally available or a bit intelligent or any of that stuff. It's like a complete 180 for you. And I get that it can be confusing. I've had a lot of patience for dudes that I've dated. But then sometimes I'm like, okay, girl, hey, we all had to figure it out. Let's wrap it up here. Let's go. You know? To me, I think that speaks more to fear than anything else, because it is scary to stand on a ledge on your own. It is scary to be a straight dude and go out into the world and decide that you're going to do something that people have told you is feminine and therefore bad or wrong or not something you should ever desire to want to do, and still hold your head up and do it. There's a lot of fear that is associated with that. There's a lot of gender policing of men by other men specifically, particularly those kinds of men that like to be in control more and really, even if they don't, just buy into this definition of what manliness is. And then, you know, on the outside, we have the rest of us that do sometimes still reify what it means to be a man to men. Some of us are guilty of it. I have been guilty of it. That's why I'm trying to be better. This is my penance. Research shows that men are at higher risk of isolation because they make friends less easily and don't take part in as many social activities or community groups as women. Something to also consider is this loneliness of single men is not just like they're unpartnered. It's like, it's not the easiest to make friends as adults. When you're trying that out, I can't imagine what it would be like to try to make friends with people when you like have no kind of emotional intelligence, or like, I don't know, are awkward or don't know how to like, let me clarify. What I mean to say is there's a certain level of vulnerability that comes with making new friends and like striking up a conversation with someone or anything like that. And if you're not someone who has had practice in being vulnerable or just allowing that, it can be difficult. I'm not saying it's difficult for everyone. Plenty of dudes have friends, but loneliness isn't just about romance. It's everything around it too. It's maybe you don't have a close relationship to your family, and it's difficult for you to make friends, and you don't have a partner. That can be very isolating. And you're a sea of thousands of faces on a dating app, and there are certain expectations of how you're supposed to look and what's going to make you attractive. And oh, listen, a lot of us have more in common than we think, okay? Just saying. Growing numbers of, quote, lonely single men absolutely sounds like a recipe for more self-victimizing incels, more anti-feminist backlash, and more heated discussions on the internet message boards that all too often breed violence. Kylie Chung for Jezebel.com. I've tried to keep it lighthearted, but also still very like, hey, feelings, ha ha ha. Kim did a video on this, and when I initially wanted to talk about this topic, I at first was just going to talk about the like psychological patriarchy and like what happens when you're not allowed to express your feelings and stuff. And that still fits here, but I also do want to speak to how dangerous it is when this seems to be a trend. Instead of a lot of young men that you categorize as incels, part of the manosphere, it's just a petri dish of disaster. You have this group of the population being told that their value lies in maybe money, maybe looks, both. And also, if they don't have that they need to be able to be dominant or powerful enough to take those things. Unfortunately for them, they bought into this idea a little too much and looked around one day and were like, I was told if I traded in this part of my humanity, I was going to get this, and I'm not getting this. Not only am I not getting this, the girls are making fun of us all. What the hell is going on? This is the part where it's hard to talk about, because instead of feminism being a place where a lot of these young men, well, I don't know, actually, some of them might not have been able to be helped. Again, remember, you can't help everybody. But for maybe some of these young men, instead of feminism being a place where they could turn to reclaim, and I'm going to say this on purpose, reclaim parts of their humanity, parts of themselves, be allowed to be free in expressing who they are and how they are. We kind of said, boo, you suck, get off the stage, boo, pass the mic. It didn't go well, but it's also not all feminism's fault. It's not, because again, men have always been in this power position, this dominant position, or if men of recent have mostly been in this powerful, dominant position, they're the ones who made it for other men. So, hi, yeah, that's also part of the, hi. A lot of people, no matter what side of political spectrums or ideologies or anything you fall on, it's like people are all looking up and being like, what the is going on right now? In my hopefully disciplined, optimistic way, we can all kind of come together, again, with our values. We're not going to all get along on how to get it done. But I think if more of us, I should say, can come together to let feminism bridge that gap, let it be that thing that is the antithesis of capitalism, you know? Let it be that thing that uses different tools. I think if more of us allow ourselves to let it be that, we're gonna have more men coming into the fold and also finding more parts of themselves and having more compassion for themselves. Because, oh my God, honestly, are y'all okay? I think a lot more men have a responsibility to, y'all, stop listening to these dating guru men. Why are you listening to these ashy men? I don't understand, because if I want to figure out, you know what? Never mind. There are resources out there, and it's daunting because it's a lot of information, but fellas, y'all got to expand your definition of feminism, because it can't just be, oh, I'm sex positive and I think women should get paid the same. Like, girl, that's not, yes, lovely, beautiful gowns. Okay, so let's move on. Like there's way more to it. And I think a lot more men would find a lot more of the freedom and, again, humanity that they're seeking if they just gave us a chance and listen. That's why the stuff the Feek is doing, whew, God, the Lord's work. For the straight ladies out there, do what you can to be as patient as you can. You don't have to do anything, again. But if you are someone who wants to practice that muscle of hope, if you're in the mood for it, and you're trying to be more compassionate to the men in your life, just start talking with them a little more. I've been talking with my little brother a little bit more. And it's not like we talk a shit ton more than we used to, but like it's a bit more, and he's just been opening up more. And it's so nice. I'm like, you have somebody to talk to. It's me. You know? I think we can do our best to do that. You know what I'm saying? So let's get into the final thoughts, and I'm going to get into more detail about the documents, because as much detail as I can. Let's just get into it. Whew, this is the last episode. It took me so long to film this. Like, not to film actually, but to get into filming it. I just was like, I don't know why I was putting it off for so long. I really hope that this video, the toxic masculinity one that I did before for the boys video, and the resources that I'm going to provide in the description, like the link to the document, I hope that that can be helpful for a lot of your dude friends, for any of your friends, specifically the dudes, but for any of your friends, because these are things that I used to teach me. These are things that other guys have told me have helped them. And I wanted it to be different media files because I also wanted it to be accessible. This document is like my opinion of what I think would be a good thing for dudes. I'm going to put some TV shows in there, because one show that I started watching recently that really that really captured all this stuff was RuPaul's Secret Celebrity Drag Race. Specifically in season 1, episode 3, there are like 2 of the guys that come to compete are straight cis white dudes, and like just the way they have this conversation, this reckoning with gender when they're it was just so great. And then I'm also going to put the Deuce in there because I fucking love the Deuce, and it's from the people that made The Wire, so I know a lot of guys were like, oh shit, yeah, The Wire, okay. Even though most of the episodes, not most, but a lot of the episodes are directed by women and written by women and produced by women. Yeah, I'm going to try to make it as versatile as possible and as accessible as possible, because this is my job. So yeah, kind of, I guess. I don't know. I'm still defining it, but let me know what y'all think about this very interesting topic. How single, lonely men are on the rise. How that's not something a lot of us, I think, want. And by lonely, I mean, even if the boys need more friends or more community, you know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily that we need people to date these boys. Okay. I'm not saying that. I don't know who's saying that, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying we just need we need these boys to have more community. Honest truth. So I want to know what y'all think about ways that could be possible. Again, for me, I really want to figure out doing some sort of free therapy here, or like men's group therapy once a week for a while. I don't know. I have a lot of ideas, but then executing them is my difficulty. That's why I like community work, because not everybody's good at everything. And sometimes people are good at like coming up with ideas and visionary, but they're not good at executing because they have like, neurodiverse. I'm saying somebody in Montreal help me. I'm kidding. Check it on your dude friends. All right. This season has been super fun. I have had such a good time. If y'all are in the chat, don't leave yet. I still got a little bit more. I've had a lot of fun doing this. It started out very serious with me having scripts for everything, and then it kind of became more commentary because I've still been trying to figure out what I want to do here and what, I don't know, I guess my voice is, if that makes sense. Yeah, it seems to be in this vein. I am going to try streaming on a second YouTube channel. So follow this channel here. I'll link it in the description as well. If you want to check those out, it's still me, just live. I'm hoping that I can do them on Sundays and maybe stream on Twitch and then just post it to the YouTube after. I'm not sure. But either way, I will keep y'all updated with community posts. I'm probably going to sleep for a week after this because my brain is like, so probably going to sleep after this for like a week and then start, thinking about streaming and stuff. But if you still want to hear from me, you can listen to the Leftover Millennials podcast that I will also, it's always in the description as well. That's a podcast Dennis and I do. Yeah, I might still be on Instagram and TikTok and stuff. We'll see. You can check out my socials if you want. And yeah. Oh, and you can definitely check out merch stuff is going to be happening very soon. So I'm really excited. It's actually happening. We're building a website right now and everything. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for going on this journey. If you've watched all the episodes, thank you so much. If you were in the lives when I had them, including this one, thank you so much. There's so many folks that are in them that like come every week, even when I switched up the date on y'all, and we're just hilarious. And y'all are funny. Y'all are funny. And y'all are really nice to each other too. Even when y'all are kind of arguing with each other, you're nice. And I appreciate that because, you know, I don't like that disrespectful. Anyway, sorry. I really love this lighting. I'm like, get into it, girl. Like, my skin looks great in this lighting. What is happening here, girl? Be sure to feed your plants, water your plants, and remember that you can always change your mind because you can. And I'll see y'all soon. We'll see. All right. Bye. All right. The men's is cold open. Because, oh God, what is that? Oh my God. Oh my God. Research soap. Oh God. Research soap. I ain't even gotta look. I know it's you. Oh, wait, why is the mic so far? Research shows. All right. So I shaved my head. Hey, I look so much like my older brother. It's absurd. The bar is in hell. Whew. While that steeps, where was I? Yeah, I know there's a lot of change, but it'll be fine. We're all gonna get through this together. It'll be fine. I really love this lighting. I didn't expect to like the green, but here we are. And I'm trying some things out with the lighting, so fantastic light. Okay. Look what happens when you just open your mind and description, get a little curious. Okay, stop, Khadija, stop. Oh, ow.